Had a quick question about cooking fats. Someone asked me, and I've had this question many times, how do you know when your lard or tallow is no longer good for cooking? Well, it's actually quite simple. There are two containers. You can see there's one container here, and there's another container here. This one on the left is still good for reuse, in my opinion. The one on the right is probably out of its prime period. So let's take a little bit of a closer look. And first of all, let's start with this one. The one that I think is probably no longer good. Now notice it's darker compared to the fresher one. As the fat becomes used, it tends to darken. Also notice something else. It is softer. Now, I can push down on this with my finger and leave a pretty good sized depression. Take a look at this one. I can push down on my finger as hard as I want, and this is about the best I can do. It's much firmer. And of course it is a lighter color. Now because of the fact that it's firmer, that tells you it's more saturated. When it becomes a little bit more soft, it's more unsaturated. Now obviously, see how much easier this is? And there are some parts that are a little harder, but it's definitely softer. Also, it goes by smell. This has sort of a cooked smell to it. This one over here, it doesn't really smell like anything. It's still relatively neutral. So this cooking fat, which is beef tallow, is still good. This fat over here is no longer good for cooking. It's basically just used for a hand cleaner. Now, what do? I just take some of this off and you rub it on your hands, and this will dissolve everything from grease even to asphalt that you use for roofing. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this material. If you would like, you could also add something like sodium or potassium hydroxide to it, and that will turn it into a soap. Because right now, this lard, although it will clean, is not going to rinse off. See? It's still on there. Well, this is actually good if you're going to work on a car, if you want to keep your skin from becoming as abused, brittle, or scraped. Putting animal fats on your hand will help tremendously, because when it does get dirty, it's less likely to penetrate. And you can see that, although I do work on cars regularly, I don't have that much dirt under the fingernails. If you want to get completely clean, then you can use a commercial detergent, which I will use sometimes on pots and pans. And then with the commercial detergent, because it has that alkali in it, it'll wash off. And now, your hands are basically just water. There is no more animal fat. So again, it's quite simple. All you have to do, use your eyes, use your sense of touch, use your sense of smell, and you'll know when cooking fat is still good for cooking and when it no longer is. I have found with animal fats, you can generally get about 10 cooking cycles before you want to replace it. This also depends on temperature. If you use a very high temperature for frying, it may only be good once or twice. What's the advantage? Well, food cooked in fresh fats tastes better, and most likely it's more healthy. If you were to cook food in something like this, it would have a much less of a taste. Now, if you're making standard American crap, duck food, it probably doesn't matter, because a lot of these restaurants, they use nasty cooking oils, and they reuse this stuff over and over again. And what they do, they just use a whole bunch of spices and salts and sugars to try to cover up the flavor. But in this case, when you cook your food basically naked, you have nothing on it, the fat that you use is extremely important. And again, this is not waste. This is not going to go in the garbage. It's going to be used as a hand cleaner, as an ingredient for soaps, You can even use it as a lubricant for certain things. Sometimes when you want to put certain parts together, like plastic parts that don't fit, you can use this. So in the end, it's all going to be used. So very simple, it's easy to use, and again, this, because it's a fresh animal fat, is in a metal container. That way I can heat it up quickly, put it into a larger pot for cooking. This one is in a plastic container because it's reached the end of its life, and it's just going to be used as a hand cleaner. If you have any questions, add some comments.